Alright, now that I covered Pixar, let's move on to DreamWorks. I'll tackle Disney next because DreamWorks has a lot of films coming out. Now that Fox will start distributing all their films, starting with The Croods up until about 2016 or 2017, they recently unveiled their revised schedule. So there are a few changes made, although mostly the 2014 releases are the same. So I went over The Croods, Turbo, and Mr. Peabody and Sherman, their three 2013 releases. I went over those. So the first release in 2014, which comes out March 14th, I believe, is Me and My Shadow. This sounds great. This is going to be a combination between computer animation and hand-drawn animation. There's only a test image, like a teaser of sorts, even though the movie isn't out for another year and a half or so. And it looks good. And when they announced this back in 2010, I thought to myself, okay, maybe DreamWorks can help bring back hand-drawn animation because Disney's trying, despite a few, bugs and glitches. Disney marketing, I'm looking at you. Besides the point, it'd be interesting to see a film with both hand-drawn and CGI, much like Pixar's Day and Night. Just a whole animated feature film just like that. And, I went over the plot before. It's about a shadow, because the shadows have their own little world, and, the main shadow happens to be with, the most boring person in the world. He's too afraid to leave his house, and, there's a lot of potential in this. This could be both really innovative and very funny at the same time. The screenplay is being written by Tom Assel and Matt Ember, and they wrote Failure to Launch and Get Smart. Failure to Launch got pretty poor reviews. Get Smart got mixed reviews, so not too sure about that. And then again, I'm not too crazy about the whole screenplay process and animation. It's like, I know DreamWorks probably does storyboards along with the script, but, sometimes when it's born out of storyboards, it's much more interesting, because I think that's probably the problem with a lot of animated films today. They're scripted, rather than the animators coming up with the body language or dialogue through storyboards. This is just an assumption, because I do know that screenwriting and storyboarding go hand in hand in the world of animation. They kind of work together. Because, Toy Story 3 had a screenplay written by Michael Arndt. Anyways, all that aside, Me and My Shadow sounds like it could be probably one of the most interesting projects to come out of DreamWorks in the future. And I just, now that DreamWorks is kind of avoiding the old formula with pop culture jokes and, that sort of mean-spirited humor and snarkiness and all that, now they're just focusing on telling stories. I have a feeling Me and My Shadow will at least be halfway decent, and not a bad film. Out of all of DreamWorks' upcoming projects, this is the one I'm excited about the most, because it's just a very good idea. Originally, Mark Dindal, the director of The Emperor's New Groove and Cats Don't Dance, was supposed to direct it, but instead, Alessandro Carloni is directing it, who was in the animation department and art department for the previous DreamWorks films, so this will be his directorial debut, so here's hoping he pulls off a really good film with this concept. It has so much potential, and I don't think DreamWorks would waste it, even with two screenwriters who wrote films that didn't get good reviews. I don't think they'd want to throw that away, given this recent critical success of How to Train Your Dragon, Kung Fu Panda 1 and 2, Madagascar 3, and maybe Rise of the Guardians. We'll see what kind of reviews that gets. So yes, Me and My Shadow. Definitely looking forward to this. I've raved about it many times. This sounds like it's going to be DreamWorks' riskiest project to date. And at the same time, they can make it a little more on the conventional side, too, because, audiences can handle hand-drawn animation. Audiences do like hand-drawn animation. They got to stop with this perception that they like computer animation much better. They don't. Next up is How to Train Your Dragon 2, which DreamWorks is releasing in the summer. And this will be directed by Dean DeBlois only. Chris Sanders won't be directing it, but still, Dean DeBlois, better than nothing. Chris Sanders, of course, is directing The Croods with Kirk D'Amico. And, you know, How to Train Your Dragon 2 has a lot of potential as well. They could come up with a much bigger storyline. It could be a lot more epic. The first one is a very good film, and DreamWorks is best, if you ask me. So, hopefully How to Train Your Dragon 2 is an improvement on that. The only problem I had with How to Train Your Dragon was the screenplay, which wasn't terrible, but I just didn't like that dialogue, that sort of modern dialogue. It didn't work, and it's what held the film back, along with a few other things in the story. So hopefully this one will have a much better story, because Kung Fu Panda 2 was proof that DreamWorks could make a sequel that's actually an improvement over the original, because Kung Fu Panda 2 had a much more interesting story about Po, you know, his backstory. It was even more emotional and even tried on some darkness here and there, particularly in those wonderful flashback sequences. You know, when I saw Kung Fu Panda 2 for the first time, I was very, very surprised that DreamWorks was actually pulled that off. So, yeah, How to Train Your Dragon 2 could be a lot better than the first film. Coming November 26, 2014 is Happy Smack Day, which is based on the true meaning of Smack Day, a book that I've never read or even heard of until DreamWorks announced that they were going to make an animated feature film based on it. All I know is that it's about aliens. I think they abduct a girl, and they have a holiday called Smack Day. There'll probably be more plot details revealed, you know, they'll reveal some more down the road. Anyways, could be interesting. If the cast is aliens, they can come up with some pretty cool alien character designs and such. But out of all the upcoming projects, this one I'm not really excited about until I hear a little bit more. They announced some of the cast. They announced the two leads, Rihanna and Jim Parsons. But that's about it. We don't know the rest of the cast. We don't know much about the story. It's just coming out November 26, 2014. If you've ever read the book, tell me what it's like, and tell me what you think of the, you know, upcoming film. Do you think DreamWorks will do a good job, or do you think they'll ruin it? I'm all ears. The first release in 2015, and 4 films are coming out in 2015. You thought 3 was a lot. They got 4 coming in 2015. That is, if all goes according to plan. Anyways, the first release of 2015 is The Penguins of Madagascar. Yep, that's right. They're getting their own movie. This was confirmed at Comic-Con months ago, and, you know, if it makes money, whatever. And they're actually even thinking about doing a 4th Madagascar, which, you know, obviously for money, I mean, there's other places they can take them and make more money, but I think Madagascar 3 was actually a decent, you know, finale, which, oddly enough, it was actually a pretty good finale. I think it was a good ending, and they don't need to make another one. But back to Penguins. I don't know what it could be about. I don't watch The Penguins of Madagascar. It takes place back at the zoo, so I assume that The Penguins of Madagascar takes place... I don't know, because I think King Julian's in it, too, so when does it take place? I mean, I'm sorry I don't know these things, but I've never watched a single episode of The Penguins of Madagascar, so... All I know is that King Julian was on an episode, and it takes place in the Central Park Zoo. So, yeah, that's about it. The Penguins, here's the thing. The Penguins were good characters because they were sort of that comic relief, you know, that came about when the movie, you know, didn't have any jokes to tell or any good humor to fire at us with the other characters. So when the Penguins came in, it just kind of punched up the 3 films a bit. But a whole film around that, I feel the same way about the upcoming Illumination film, the Minions, the Despicable Me Minions spinoff that they have coming out in December 2014. It's just, I don't think you can make a whole movie about that. But hey, maybe in March 2015, when it comes out, DreamWorks will prove me wrong. Can only imagine, right? Coming June 5th, 2015 is Trolls, which is based on the Good Luck Trolls toys. I remember they announced it like the weekend Toy Story 3 came out, and, you know, I didn't think that was ever going to get made, but apparently it's happening. And how can you make a whole film about that? I have no idea. I didn't even know that Good Luck Troll Dolls even had a storyline. I don't know. Or else they'll just come up with one. Again, one I'm not really looking forward to. Just another brand name movie that's a safe bet and one that will make a shitload of money. Hey, power to them. Coming out November 6th, 2015 is Boo, Bureau of Otherworldly Operations, which I'm assuming is basically a rewrite of Boo You, and it stars Seth Rogen as the lead. Boo You was originally about ghosts in a university learning how to scare, but apparently they've retold the story, so it's going to be something completely different. I'm surprised they're releasing this on November 6th. You'd think they'd release it actually before Halloween. Oh well, since we don't know too much about it, keep an eye out for it. And the final 2015 release is Mumbai Musical, that's currently titled. I know that one of the working titles for the movie was Monkeys of Mumbai. Stephen Schwartz is also going to do the music for the film. He was the lyricist for The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and he also did the music for The Prince of Egypt. Kevin Lima, it was announced back in 2000, it was announced last July that Kevin Lima, the co-director of Tarzan and the director of Enchanted, was going to direct the film. So, I don't know if he's still attached or not. And DreamWorks only has 2 films scheduled for 2016, the first of which is Kung Fu Panda 3. And, like I said about Kung Fu Panda 2, I was surprised by how good it was, and the ending definitely left it open for a third one. So I hope the third one is a nice, epic conclusion, because Kung Fu Panda 2 was almost a complete 180 from the original. The original had a solid story, but at the same time it was sort of a lighthearted spoof of Kung Fu movies. The second one was actually more of an epic story, so hopefully the third one goes all out completely with this big epic action-adventure film. And some character development too. Maybe get to learn more about the Furious Five along the way. And I wonder who the villain will be, because Lord Shen was a pretty cool villain. And then, of course, How to Train Your Dragon 3, which was inevitable. Again, there's a lot of possibilities here with the sequels, and there'll probably be something else that'll be coming out in 2016 as well. No, I don't know when the deal with Fox is supposed to end. I'm not sure if it's supposed to end in 2016 or 2017, but they're making the most of it. That's all I could say. So out of all these, well, currently scheduled upcoming projects, minus Rise of the Guardians, The Croods, Turbo, and Mr. Peabody and Sherman, I'm looking forward to Me and My Shadow and Monkeys of Mumbai. They both have potential. I mean, imagine DreamWorks actually doing an animated musical and competing with the older Disney classics and the newer Disney films too, since, some of the newer films are musicals. Princess and the Frog, Tangled, Winnie the Pooh. And, of course, Frozen will be a musical. So it'll be interesting to see how they pull it off. The rest of the films that DreamWorks has announced over the years are basically in development. There's no release dates scheduled for them or anything. But I have a feeling that some of these projects aren't even going to make it, because I remember back in 2004 or 2005, DreamWorks announced a lot of upcoming projects, and three of them got canned. Rex Havoc, Punk Farm, and Route 66. Yeah, imagine that. DreamWorks greenlighting a project called Route 66 when Pixar was finishing up Cars. Anyways, you can look up the plot synopsis for the film, because they revealed it. Apparently, I don't know who the comedian is. I think his name was Harlan Williams or something. He came up with the story. You think Turbo is a weird story for a DreamWorks film? Just look that one up. I mean, no offense to him, but I think it just sounds so silly. Anyways, moving on. They got Pig Scrolls, which is based on a book. I read the synopsis. Has some potential to be a really cool animated feature. And then they're also planning on doing an adaptation of Interworld, which was written by Neil Gaiman and Michael Reeves. Neil Gaiman, of course, wrote Coraline, so there's potential in that one too. It's a sci-fi novel. You can look up the synopsis for that one too. It's about a man named Joey Harker who joins up with a group of other Joeys from different Earths and other parallel universes, and they try to stop two forces of magic and science from taking over all of the Earths in different universes. So there's a lot of potential in that one. DreamWorks can make a really cool epic sci-fi out of that. But I have a feeling they're not going to tackle it anytime soon, because it seems a little out of their comfort zone. They want to try something a little safer first. Got Dino Trucks coming, which, well, as the name implies, Dino Trucks. I don't know if that's going to work. Gil's All-Fried Diner. Gil's All-Fried Diner kind of reminds me of Hotel Transylvania. Basically, it's a diner. It's basically a diner with vampires, zombies, werewolves, and all other kinds of things. And, the diner manager kind of offers them a job to help her and help solve, zombie problems. I guess there's a I guess there's some potential there. Truckers is based on a Terry Pratchett book, much like Disney's canceled adaptation of Mort from the Discworld series. Truckers, they announced it for a 2012 release date a long time ago, but I have a feeling that's not going to go anywhere. Imaginary Enemies is about kids who blame things they did wrong on their imaginary friends, and basically the imaginary friends getting even with them. Sounds like a Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends kind of thing. Basically, they go bad. Got Troll Hunters, which is Guillermo del Toro, along with Alma. Alma is based on a short film done by Rodrigo Blas. He was a former Pixar animator. So that one has a lot of potential, but again, it seems a little un-DreamWorks. Hopefully, when DreamWorks gets around to doing it, they impress audiences and offer something completely different from everyone else. Maintenance is about two janitors in the future working for an evil science think tank, so there's a lot of potential in that one. Lidsville is based on a Sid and Marty Krofft show from the 1970s, so that sounds like a safer project. Them trying to revive something from the past like most of the other studios are doing. But hopefully it's a decent film. Flawed Dogs, which is based on a book by Berkeley Breathed, who also wrote Mars Needs Moms and created Bloom County. This one sounds like it could be good. It's basically about a dachshund who's rejected by his owners because they get a show dog who's very cocky and full of himself. So basically, the dog meets up with other dogs that are misfits and rounds them all up, hence the title Flawed Dogs, and hopes to challenge the show dog at the big dog show, the big international dog show. So that sounds like it could be a pretty good movie, one with a lot of heart and all. Not sure when DreamWorks will ever get around to doing it, but that's one they should do. Rumblewick, as DreamWorks describes, it's an original story. It's about a magician's rabbit for whom the invitation to learn real magic and train as a witch is familiar, seems like a dream come true, but the dream becomes a nightmare when he discovers he's really a pawn in a game between rival witches, having learned the hard way that when something seems too good to be true, it probably is. He must outsmart them both to save his fuzzy little hide. So, that, again, that's pretty original. It's creative. A magical kind of thing. That's a project I'd like to see DreamWorks do. But who knows when, whenever they'll get around to greenlighting the film. The Grimm Legacy is about a girl who works in a library of sorts that keeps items, and items from the Grimm fairy tales start appearing, so she goes out on an adventure with her co-workers to get the missing stash. That one sounds pretty cool as well, and since it's about the Grimm fairy tales, it has potential to be a dark film. That is, if DreamWorks is willing to pull it off that way. Captain Underpants, again, a recognizable character. I don't see this working, but I do remember Captain Underpants being a staple. I do remember Captain Underpants being a staple at my school's book fairs every year. It's just, I never really liked them. I read a few pages of them. I thought they were, even as a kid, I thought they were so juvenile and childish, all that toilet humor. It's like, I thought DreamWorks was trying to get away from that, but that film is that's ripe for so many toilet humor jokes. It's probably going to be like a big gross out animated movie. So, yes, not looking forward to that one. But yeah, that's all of DreamWorks' upcoming projects. Now moving on to Disney.